Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are wondering why I haven't played poker in over a month, let's break down why. I feel like it's pretty obvious by now, but poker is definitely not my full-time job. If it was, I'd probably be bankrupt since I don't play enough hours and I only play at the low stakes. So as for my real job, I'm actually a rice farmer. We spent the last 5 to 6 months prepping the ground, flooding the fields and growing the rice, and I'm happy to announce that it's finally time to harvest. In this clip, you can see how the fields are flooded and the rice is super green, but after draining the fields of all the water for several weeks after the rice is fully grown, it's finally dried up and it's time to get the rice out of the ground. In order to harvest the rice, we have to use these huge combines to separate the rice kernels from the plant. The rice then gets sent to these big trailers, and semi-trucks drive these trailers to a massive mill where they package and distribute the rice for people to consume. The type of rice we grow is called Cal Rose medium grained rice, and it's strictly grown in California. It's soft and somewhat sticky that's commonly found in both sushi and rice bowls. We have about 500 acres of land that will produce around 4.5 million pounds of rice this year, so if you've wondered why I haven't played any poker the past few weeks, I've been busy battling Mother Nature to finally get all this rice harvested and sent to the mill. But since you're watching this, I'm happy to announce that the harvest season has finally come to an end, and it's time to get back to what you all are really here for. Low stakes, action-packed poker. For the year 2025, I'm trying to make $25 an hour while playing the same amount of hours at both 1-2 and 1-3. This year's been full of ups and downs, so let's see where we stand. As for our 1-2 stats, I've now played 84 hours even in this game and profited $2,222 for an hourly win rate of $26.45, which I'm fired up about because this number was way down at the beginning of the year. As for our 1-3 stats, I played 85 hours even and profited $3,997 for an hourly win rate of $47.02, which is an awesome spot to be in. Combining these stats, I've now played exactly 169 hours of live poker in 2025 and profited $6,219 for an hourly win rate of $36.80. We're in a solid spot, but would love to keep padding the stats with some more cushion, so what better way to do that than by heading out to the nicest card room in Northern California, which is none other than Stone's Gambling Hall. We bought into the 1-2 game for the max of $300, and today's session got off to a super slow start, which isn't ideal when you haven't played poker in almost 2 months. I kept getting dealt marginal offsuit Broadway hands, kept whiffing the flop completely, which is why I was stuck around $85 before our first interesting hand of the day. For this hand, there's 4 limps to me on the button, and I look down at a premium and 10 deuce offsuit. This hand is obviously garbage, but I haven't won a pot all day, so what's the worst thing that could happen? Doyle Brunson can win back-to-back main events in the 70s with it. I think I could use some of its magic to win a pot at a local 1-2 game. Since I'm in the best position possible, I decided to raise the price of poker to $15. This game isn't short of action because 4 people put in the call, which didn't make my life any easier. Going 5 ways to a flop of Ace-King-7, giving us 10 high and a dream. Action gets checked to me, and I didn't raise this trash to just try and hit a miracle 2-pair, so I'm going to use my position and range advantage to try and steal this pot. So I c-bet bluff for $25, hoping to take it down, but get called by the big blind and cutoff, doubling this pot to $150. Since I bet small, it's very likely I'm up against an ace, king, or flush draw, not much else. Keeping that in mind, we're off to a turn which rolls out a pretty big blank and the 3 of diamonds. Checks to me again, and I think both of these players would have let out on the turn with 2-pair or better in order to charge the draws, so sitting here with just over a pot-sized bet, it's time to put our opponents to the test and go all in. Since they didn't raise pre-flop and didn't raise at any point in this hand, they're capped to a weak ace at best, while my range consists of all the sets, 2 pairs, and big aces. The big blind wastes no time before getting out of the way. The cutoff says how I must have 2-pair and told me he folded ace-5 of spades for top pair. We managed to win a sizable pot with absolutely nothing, And sometimes it's more important to play your entire range against your opponents rather than your specific holding. Feels good to get the adrenaline flowing early on in the day and get a massive bluff through with complete air. Now that we finally got out of the negative and into the positive, I'm looking to keep this momentum rolling. In our next interesting hand, I look down at ace-9 of hearts under the gun and raise the price of poker to $10. A little loose from this position, but I have a vlog to make, so we're never folding this, especially after playing 10 deuce. Like I said before, this game isn't short of action because once again 4 people put in the call. We're going 5 ways to a flop of 8-4 deuce with 1 heart, giving us 2 overcards and the backdoor nut flush draw. In my opinion, we have the perfect hand and got the perfect flop to start a c-bet bluff with. 2 pairs should never be represented. The only possible straight draws are gut shots, so if I get called, I could put a ton of pressure on our opponent's 1 pair holdings if a heart or a big card rolls out on the turn. So I decided to stick with the plan and throw out a c-bet for $20, just get called by a player in early position, increasing this pot to $90. Off to a turn which rolls out a nice looking card in the 9 of diamonds, giving us top pair, top kicker. Now that we have showdown value, I decided to start off with a check since our hand can only get 2 streets of value from worse. I want to make it look like I'm giving up with a hand like ace-king. Our opponent decides to check it back, which indicates to me we probably have the best hand, and either has a straight draw like ace-3 or 7-6, or a smaller 1 pair holding. Off to a river hoping for a blank, and that's exactly what we get when the deuce of spades rolls out, pairing the board and still giving us top pair, top kicker. All the straight draws missed, which I love to see. I could check to allow him to bluff those missed draws, but I felt like all his 1 pair holdings would check back, and I wanted to make sure I didn't miss out on a value bet. I don't think he could call much with a hand like 8-7 or 5-4, so I throw out a super small bet of $25, and our opponent wastes no time before putting in the call. I confidently roll over my hand, expecting to scoop in another decent pot, but he somehow shows the second best starting hand ever in pocket kings. He just flatted with kings pre-flop and checked back the turn in position on a pretty safe board, which had me completely shocked. Just glad I didn't bet too big on the river and minimize my losses. This next hand might go down as my favorite of the day. Under the gun limps, an action folds to me in the hijack, and I look down at ace-4 of hearts. Never over limping with the suited ace in this late of position, so I raise the price of poker to $10 and get called by the cutoff, big blind, and original limper. Going 4 ways to a flop of jack 5-3 with 2 diamonds, giving us a gut shot to the wheel, not much else. Action gets checked to me, and I could go either way between a c-bet bluff or a check. This time I decided to check in order to see if the player to my left bet, or if he checked, I know he wouldn't be strong and I could pick up free information based off what the other 2 players decide to do on the turn. Player to my left decides to throw out a bet of $15, and the other 2 players get out of the way. It's possible our opponent has a jack, but I figured on this board he would have sized up a bit more for protection, so this kind of felt like a feeler bet with a flush draw or a pair smaller than a jack. If our opponent bet bigger, I would have snap folded. Since I have a decent read on his range and I have outs to the straight, I decided to peel one off to either steal this pot on the turn or river with the bluff, or improve and win with the value hand. Pot's now increased to $70. We're off to a turn hoping for a deuce, ace, or 6, but it rolls out a super interesting card in the king of hearts. Unless he specifically has king jack or king x of diamonds, this card should never improve his hand. It should be way better for my range than his. So I'm going to use this scare card to my advantage and not allow him to check back by throwing out a pretty sizable bet of $40 with complete air. He thinks about it for a second and ends up just tossing his hand in the muck, which I love to see. Just like in the 10 deuce hand, it's super important to play range versus range rather than your specific hand. A few orbits went by and we're sitting around even on the day and looking to make something special happen. In this hand, action folds to me in middle position, and I look down at ace-queen offsuit and raise it up to $10. Player to my left, who is the opponent we just bluffed, now puts in a 3-bet to $25. Folds back to me. Ace-queen offsuit doesn't do great against a low-stakes player's 3-betting range, but I can't fold for only $15 more, so I put in the extra chips. We're off to see a flop which rolls out ace-3 deuce rainbow, giving us top pair, second best kicker. Pretty good flop for our specific holding. there's 0 point in leading out, so I check and flow. Our opponent decides to check it back. If he had a hand like King Queen, I'm 100% positive he'd use this ace as a scare card and bluff with all his hands that missed. But since he checked back, I figured he either has us completely dominated with aces or ace king, or has a pair like jacks through kings and is afraid of the ace. There's still $50 in the pot. We're off to see a turn which peels off the king of clubs, which I wasn't a big fan of. Pocket kings now has us drawing dead. If he has queens, jacks, or tens, it's another overcard that should scare him. So once again, I see 0 point in betting, so I check for a second time. Our opponent decides to check it back again. I'm certain he would start value betting all the hands that have us beat, so I'm very confident I'm in the lead now. Off to a river, which peels off a complete blank and the 3 of spades pairing the board, and since I'm putting him on a pair smaller than a king, there's no point in betting big since those hands can't face any heat, so I down bet to just $15. Our opponent makes a side call and tosses in the chips. I roll over my hand. As expected, our opponent tosses his in the muck. Just glad he raised small pre-flop or else I would have been forced to fold. Happy with the read I had on our opponent's hand. Next hand up, we finally get dealt a premium. I'm under the gun and look down at the Cowboys, pocket kings, and raise them up to $10. 2 people put in the call, including the big blind. So we're off to a flop 3 ways of 10-5 deuce with 2 diamonds giving us the overpair on a favorable board. The big blind decides to lead out for $15, which threw me off, but I had to figure out what this meant. Most players who flop a set usually go for the check raise rather than donk bet, so in my opinion this bet means our opponent either has a 10 or a middling pair that didn't want to let anyone see a free turn, or they have a flush draw. Either way, I should be ahead 99% of the time. When that's the case, it's time to put more money in the pot. The last thing I would want is for a 10 or a flush draw to fold, so I decide to re-raise our opponent to just $40. I feel like he'd continue with all those 10x holdings and flush draws, but surprisingly our opponent must not have had either and quickly tosses his hand in the muck. Pretty sure he had a pair like pocket 7s or pocket 8s that wanted to find out where they stood. Kinda sucks we didn't get any more value out of our opponent. Just flatting on that flop without getting value or charging draws would have been a massive mistake. In this next hand, 4 people just call for $2. Now the button decides to raise to 8. If he had any big value hand at all, he'd want to raise a lot bigger to not only get value, but to avoid taking this hand super multi-way. Usually these small raises indicate a super small pocket pair that's trying to bloat up the pot, or a weak suited hand that's trying to accomplish the same thing. Action gets to me in the big blind, and I look down at 7-6 offsuit. Obviously not a great starting hand, but given that I picked up a major sizing tell that our opponent isn't strong, it's time to put him to the test. Decide to put in a 3-bet to $32 with just 7 high. I'm feeling good that I'll have a decent amount of fold equity, but if he somehow calls, I'm confident in my post-flop play and not worried about taking this hand to the streets. But that's not going to happen because one by one everyone folds. We take down $16 of dead money without any going to the casino. Keep an eye out for these sizing tells and exploit them often. At this point in the session, things are going pretty smooth. We're up around $75 on the day, which I'm pretty happy with, especially after being down $90 early on. In this next hand, early position opens the action to $10. Action folds me on the button when I look down at the jackasses, pocket jacks. It's allegedly the 4th best starting hand of all time, which means it's super rare to have us beat, so might as well put in a raise, especially in position. So I 3-bet our opponent to $30. When action folds back to him, he decides 30 isn't enough and just goes all in for 130 total. I'm pretty confident this specific opponent isn't doing this with 10s or 9s, so he either has us completely dominated with queens or better, or has ace king and we're flipping at best. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a big fan of putting any more money in this pot given that scenario, so I gladly toss this trash in the muck, and our opponent is nice enough to show the Cowboys, pocket kings. Glad I was able to make the right decision and save $100. That was the last noteworthy hand of the day, but make sure you guys stay for day 2 because I play in one of the wildest 1-3 games of the year with massive pots. But for now, let's get to the outro. I'm super pumped I was able to book a win in my first poker session in over 50 days. in for the original 300, and out for 325 for a decent little win of $25. For day 2, we bought into a new 1-3 game for $500, which is the max to start. And like I mentioned earlier, this game is playing huge today, so buckle up. Just like day 1, I got off to a slow start. I picked up some solid hands, but kept missing flops completely and was forced to fold. A better seat opened up across the table that was to the left of some action players. Had a good view for the vlog still, so I took the spot, and that's when things got crazy. In our first interesting hand of the day, an action player throws on the $15 under the gun straddle, so the blinds for this hand are 1, 3, 15, which is insane. The player to my right opens the action to $50. I'm next to act and look down at 5, 4 spades. I could fold for this price since we're not that deep, but the action player who straddled has defended his straddle every single time, has been playing pretty bad on the day, so I want to get involved in as many pots as possible with him. So I call the $50 with my nice looking suited connector, and as expected, the straddler calls as well, increasing this pot to $150. Going 3 ways to a flop of Jack 6 deuce with 2 hearts and a spade, giving us a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw. Action checks to the original raiser who throws out a c-bet of $65. Since I'm drawing to the nuts and have a backdoor possibility, I decide to flat since our opponent didn't bet too big. I'm not convinced he has a value hand just yet. Could easily be making this bet with a hand like ace king or king queen with a heart in it, as well as smaller pairs that I might be able to get him off of in later streets. So I put in the $65, increasing this pot to $280. The action player under the gun gets out of the way. Going heads up to a turn in position, and it rolls out a super interesting card in the Jack of clubs, which pairs the top card. My opponent slows down and checks. Now I have myself a decision. I don't think he's ever checking a jack in this spot, so my goal right now is to try and rep it myself. So I throw out a bet of $125, which is the sizing I'd use with all my jacks in this spot. Our opponent wastes no time before sticking in the call, which had me super concerned. I'm very confident he's folding all his ace high and king high hands, so his range is simple. A huge pair like pocket nines through aces, or a flush draw and not much else. Pot's now ballooned to $530. I have just under $200 left in my stack. We're off to a river hoping for a 3 only, but it rolls out the 4 of hearts, giving us a pair but bringing in the front door flush. Our opponent checks in flow. I think with the amount I have behind, it'd be impossible for him to fold a big pair at this point. Now I'm losing to all his flushes, so I wave the white flag and check, hoping by some miracle a pair of 4s is good, but it's not even close because he shows the best hand ever created in pocket aces. I don't really hate the way I played it. When the straddle is that big and I only have 5 high, I should probably just do myself a favor and toss it in the muck pre-flop. In order to not be a short stack, I add on $500 to my stack. I'm now into the game for $1,000 total. But while I'm waiting for my new chips, the same opponent from last hand opens to $15. I'm next to act and somehow look down at the Cowboys, pocket kings. Never flatting, so I 3-bet to $45. Surprisingly, a player to my left cold calls the 45, and the early position calls the extra 30 as well. So going 3 ways to a flop of queen 7 deuce with 2 spades, giving us the overpair. No need to bet big in this spot, so I throw out the same size bet of $45, and both players fold, so at least we got a little back right away. Looking to build off that king's hand when the $6 straddle is on. 2 people call before action's on me on the button, and I look down at my favorite hand in poker, which is none other than Jack 10 suited, but this time in the club variety. I make it $25 to go in position and get called by the big blind and 2 limpers. With exactly $100 in the pot, we're going 4 ways to a flop of Jack 8-6 with 2 diamonds, giving us top pair decent kicker. Action gets checked to me, and sitting here with top pair, a value bet is obviously in order. My standard sizing in these multi-way pots is around half pot to get value from smaller 1-pair holdings and charge all the straight and flush draws. So I stick to the plan and throw out a value bet of $55, just get called by the big blind. With 210 in the pot, the turn rolls out the worst card in the deck and the ace of diamonds, bringing in the front door flush and putting an overcard to our jack. And to make matters worse, our opponent decides to lead into us for $75. He hasn't gotten out of line all day, so I have an annoying yet easy fold because I'm most likely drawing dead. Just a few hands later, we're in early position, and once again get dealt our favorite hand, but this time in the diamond variety. I raise it up to $20, get called by the cutoff, player under the gun who threw on the $6 straddle. With 60 in the pot, we're off to a flop 3 ways of ace queen 4 with 2 diamonds, giving us both a straight and flush draw. Not only do I have a million outs if I'm up against a pair, but I also have the range advantage because I have ace queen, ace king, pocket aces, and pocket queens in my range, while they have ace 4 or pocket 4s at best. So given all that, I decided to throw out a bet of $40, just get called by the player under the gun, increasing this pot to $140. Can't put him on a range just yet, so we're off to a turn which peels off the 5 of hearts, which shouldn't change much. He checks and flow, now it's decision time. Check it back to see a free river, or continue betting and rep a monster. Either option is fine, but since we have the range advantage, I'm going all the way with this hand. Either improve on the river and go all in for value, or miss completely and still rep that I have a monster. So I stick to the plan and throw out a pretty hefty bet of $125, which will help me continue my story that I'm strong, and should even fold out all his queen X hands and even some weak aces. But our opponent must not be a believer yet, because he sticks in the call, increasing this pot to $390. Since he didn't raise yet, I think we could take all his 2 pairs and sets off the table, so I think he's capped to a hand like ace jack at best, or a diamond draw. With just over a pot-sized bet left in our stack, we're off to a river which rolls out the deuce of hearts and we miss all our outs because we obviously had too many. But no worries, because when he checks it over, I'm going to go all in, which will force him to fold, and I could scoop in a sizable pot with a bluff. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen because our opponent goes all in himself, which forces us to fold. I'm pretty confident our opponent hit 2 pair or the wheel straight on the river, nothing else. It would have been nice to hit that draw, but since we couldn't, the hole got deeper, and now we're quickly down over $600 in just over an hour. No need to panic yet, since this game is playing huge, and $600 seems like a lot, but it's only around 100 big blinds. Next hand up, early position opens the action to $20. When it gets folded to me in the small blind, I look down at the infamous ace-king offsuit. My standard raise would be $60 to $75, but since we're out of position and playing in the worst position possible, it's time to raise even more. So I go 5x and make the price to play $100 even. When action folds back to our opponent, he quickly puts in the call, increasing this pot to $200. Off to a flop heads up, and it comes out king 10-8 rainbow, giving us top pair, top kicker. Hard to ask for much more, and since stacks aren't that deep, I don't need to bet too big to try and get the money all in by the river. So I throw out a standard bet of $75 to get value from his worst pairs and draws, but I guess he doesn't think 75 is enough and decides to put me all in. I obviously snap call, increasing this pot to $790, and roll over my hand like I always do when I'm all in. Not really sure what I'm up against, so I'm just hoping for a low card run out. Turn shouldn't change anything when the deuce of clubs rolls out, and the river also looks safe when the 6 of hearts peels off. Given that low run out, I was pretty confident I had the best hand, till my opponent rolls over king 6 of diamonds for the river 2 pair. I couldn't have asked for a better scenario to get all the money in on the flop. Poker is a nasty game that will constantly test your mental fortitude. Nothing to do than just keep adding on, so I grab another $500, and I'm now into the game for $1,500 total and stuck exactly $1,000 on the day. While I'm unracking my third bullet, I see the cutoff open the action to $20. I'm next to act and look down at ace king again, but at least it's suited this time. Never flatting, so I make it $80 to go. Surprisingly, the big blind puts in the cold call. Cold calls are almost always pocket pairs or Broadway hands, not much else. Folds back to the cutoff, who decides to fold, so with 180 in the pot, we're off to a flop heads up of queen 8 deuce with 2 hearts, giving us just 2 overcards. Big blind checks. In order to stay balanced, I decide to throw out a c-bet of $75 whether I connect or not, just so I don't give any sizing tells away. Our opponent isn't scared of the $75 bet and quickly puts in the call, so my alarm bells are going off. I think a queen is very likely, but at minimum our opponent probably has a hand like pocket 9s that isn't convinced I have something. Pot's now up to $330 and we're off to a turn hoping to pick up equity or make a pair, but that's not going to happen when a complete blank rolls out in the 4 of diamonds. Now I have a couple options. Go for golden jam as a bluff, or check back and evaluate a river. Against this specific player, the plan here is simple. I'm checking back 100% of the time. I have a little history with this opponent, and they love calling down light. So me going all in would just be lighting money on fire because a queen is never folding. I could even see them calling with the hand as low as pocket 7 since my overbet would look a little suspect. So I'm basically done with the hand and check it back until the river rolls out the beautiful king of clubs, giving us top pair, top kicker. Our opponent checks again. Now our plan has completely changed and it's time to go for value. The hands I'm targeting are simple: ace queen, queen jack, queen 10, and possibly pocket jacks or pocket 10s. Given that range, I don't think a big bet makes any sense, so I throw out a value bet of $120, which sends our opponent deep in the tank. Anytime you send your opponent in the tank, you most likely use the perfect betting size because you put them in a tough spot. At this point, I'm just hoping for a call to get us out of this massive hole, but unfortunately our opponent makes the right play and tosses his hand in the muck. Would have been nice to get the extra $120, but I'll take winning any size pot with ace king any day of the week. We're now only down 3 figures, barely, but I'll take a small win any way I could get it right now. For this one, early position limps, and the cutoff raises the price of poker to $25. Button calls, and I'm in the small blind and look down at 40% of a royal flush and queen 10 of diamonds. A lot of people say you should only play a 3-bet or fold strategy out of the small blind since it's the worst position possible. While I somewhat agree with that, I think there's hands that you could make an exception with, and queen 10 suited is one of them. Basically calling with any pocket pair or suited Broadway hand lower than ace queen or ace jack is a small blind flatting range I could get behind. So I decided to just call the $25, and the big blind and limper call as well, so we're off to a flop 5 ways, which is pretty favorable, and jack 8 deuce all diamonds, giving us the 3rd highest flush and a redraw to the straight flush. I debated leading out for a second since we're super multi-way, but I wanted to see what these other guys would do. Gets checked to the button, who decides to throw out a c-bet of $75. I'm usually an advocate to fast playing your good hands, but since there's 3 other people still in the pot, I wanted to see if I could bring someone along with the jack that I probably have drawing dead, so I just flat the 75. Unfortunately, the other 3 players fold, and the plan here is simple. Unless another diamond rolls out on the turn, I'm going to take control of the pot and lead out to avoid getting it checked back. With 275 in the pot, turn is very interesting when it rolls out the jack of clubs. This card is either amazing for us because it gives our opponent trips and he's never folding, or he has a hand like pocket 7s and it might kill our action. Either way, we're gonna find out, so I lead out for a pretty sizable bet of 170, mainly targeting trip jacks, overpairs, the ace of diamonds. He doesn't waste much time before folding. I don't think he was too strong, or else he would have thought about it longer, but I'm just fired up. We scooped in back-to-back solid pots, and I'm starting to trend in the right direction. Unfortunately, this trend came to a halt because we lost a few uneventful pots with a couple solid hands, and found ourselves down around $845 again. To try and make something happen, I throw on the $6 straddle, and a player in early position just calls the $6. Folds to the player on the button, who is the same opponent who stacked me with king 6 of diamonds when I had ace king, now raises to 30. Folds over to me, and I look down at the ladies, pocket queens. Price to play is about to go up. Admission is going to cost $100 to enter. The player who just called the $6 pre-flop somehow has a $100 hand because he slides in the extra $94. As expected, king 6 is never folding, so he calls as well. This pot already has $300 in the middle. We're off to a flop 3 ways of 10-8-3 with 2 diamonds, giving us the overpair on a somewhat connected board. Not wanting to scare any worse one pair holdings away, I decided to throw out a value bet of $120 and just get called by the button, increasing this pot to $540. Off to a turn heads up, and it peels off the most interesting card in the deck, and the queen of diamonds, bringing in the front door flush, but giving us top set. Now I have a very complex decision because we have less than a pot-sized bet left in our stack, but I'm not too sure if we should check, bet small, or go all in. I think checking is fine because we could see what our opponent decides to do and pick up more information, but but I would hate to give him a free card and he sucks out on the river with a diamond in his hand. I really don't like betting small because I'd be pot stuck on the river, meaning I put so much money in the pot already, and if a fourth non-pairing diamond comes on the river, I'd be forced to call since I'm getting such great pot odds. Or I could just close my eyes and go all in, hoping he has a hand like ace-jack with a diamond in it, or even if he flopped the flush, I still have outs as a backup plan. Well, in order to make things simple, I decided to go with the latter and just go all in. If he has us beat, then so be it. I can't allow a free river to come out on this specific board. He thinks about it for a little, but ends up tossing his hand in the mug, giving us the winner. After winning with the ladies, we're only stuck a little over $500, which is huge for morale given we were stuck 4 figures just 40 minutes ago. The session was nearing an end because I tried to play 3 hours or less in order to stay sharp, and we're nearing that 3-hour mark. For this one, a new player just sat down in the low jack and opens the action to $20. Folds me on the button, and for the second time today, I look down at ace-king of spades. Never flatting, especially in the best position possible, so I make it $70 to go. When action folds back to our opponent, he decides 70 isn't enough and 4-bets to 220, which sends me in the tank. There's 2 options here, fold or go all in. Most low-stakes players only 4-bet with jacks or better and ace-king, so at best I feel like I'm flipping or I'm completely dominated. When that's the case, the logical thing to do is fold, but the fact that I could basically get back to even while holding a premium felt way more enticing and exciting, so I decided to put our opponent to the test and go all in. He obviously snap calls, and I show him what he's up against. With exactly $1,000 in the middle, we're off to see a run out, hoping for 3 spades to make my life easier. We don't get any when the flop comes out queen 8-3 with 2 diamonds. Turn isn't any help in the 6 of clubs, and river 5 of hearts still has us sitting here with ace high, and our opponent shows the jackasses, pocket jacks. The reason for the pocket jacks nickname is simple. I can't win with this damn hand if my life depended on it, nor can I beat it if someone else has it. If anyone out there watching knows how to win with this hand, please drop your advice in the comments because I'll take anything I could get. We played for a little longer, but nothing interesting happened, so let's get to the outro. It's hard to book a win when you get 3 outed and then lose a huge flip to end the day. In for $1,500, out for only $487 for a massive $1,013 loss. As for this week in poker, we played 5.5 hours and lost a total of $988 for an hourly win rate of negative $179.64. Not quite the welcome back week I was hoping for. As for our 1-2 stats, I've now played 86.5 hours in this game and profited $2,247 for an hourly win rate of $25.98. Pretty solid. Wouldn't mind keeping that number above $25 an hour to make life easier. As for our 1-3 stats, well, they obviously took a little hit. I've now played 88 hours even in this game and profited $2,984 for an hourly win rate of $33.91. It's still sitting over 10 big blinds an hour, which is always the goal, but things are getting a little too close for comfort now that the end of the year is quickly approaching. Combining all our stats, I've now played 174 hours and 30 minutes of live poker in 2025 and profited $5,231 for an hourly win rate of $29.98. Still $5 above our goal, but as you can see, this number can massively fluctuate since the 1-3 gameplay is so big, so if I'm not careful, our goal could easily slip away from us. Stay tuned for next week's video to see if we can make up some of this week's losses, or we choke in the 4th quarter and don't achieve our goal. Thanks for watching, and as always, I hope you guys run good at the tables, and I'd appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button to help me reach my new year-end goal of 30,000 subscribers.